Throughout the 2000s, Johnny Depp was one of the biggest movie stars of all time and starred in numerous blockbusters. But starting in the early 2010s, he would end up starring in numerous movies that failed to connect with modern audiences, and resulted in significantly lower box office numbers. He was still a great actor, and he did manage to squeeze in a good movie or at least an interesting role during that time, but for the most part, he wasn't able to have the same success as before. The reason I bring this up is because Dolittle feels like the beginning of a very similar era for Robert Downey Jr., who is a lot like Depp, one of the biggest movie stars of all time. It's too bad. It's his first post-Marvel movie and he's already a Razzie contender.
This is a nightmare!
It's honestly pretty strange that a movie about Dr. Dolittle was made now, but it's not really because Hollywood was out of ideas. Turns out, Dolittle was a giant passion project for Downey, and he spent years trying to get it made. My guess is that he was the only one who really wanted to do it, and the only reason Universal went with him on it was because they had enough faith in his star power to make the movie a success. Yeah, but is the movie good? No! This movie is so fundamentally flawed. Whatever Downey wanted to do, whatever gem of a movie he saw in his mind, has turned into a dry piece of dog shit. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating a bit. I don't hate the movie. It's not one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's just that as a whole, this movie is very poorly done, and at times extremely frustrating. There are numerous reasons why. The cast is wasted, the visual effects range from meh to bad, and the whole story is just unbearably generic. But I can think of three main reasons why this movie fails as badly as it does. One, and most obviously, is Robert Downey Jr.'s ridiculous performance as Dr. Dolittle. In my Space Jam review, I talked about movie stars and how they differentiate from actors, and the reason I bring this up is because, in my opinion, Downey is like a perfect hybrid of the two. He is wonderfully charismatic as a movie star and very talented and committed as an actor, and is completely capable of disappearing into a role. In this movie, neither of those skills come into play.
You're a sick kitty.
I don't even want to say that it's bad, but the choices he made for this character just don't work. He's going for this Welsh accent to give Dolittle more of a, character, but it makes him completely incomprehensible. But regardless of Downey's performance, the character itself is just poorly written. He's on this adventure to save his friend the Queen, but he's only doing it because if she dies, he loses his house.
You need to go and help the Queen.
There are things I no longer do. Work with humans.
Wake up, John! If the Queen dies, the Treasury takes the deed and we lose this house.
You're talking out of your tail feathers, Polly.
I'm going to die!
We've no choice but to embark on this perilous journey.
So he's doing everything he's doing for completely selfish reasons, and it doesn't help me root for him.
Darling, can I have a word, please?
Glad you came around and saw things my way.
That and the fact that by the movie's own logic, he's making animal noises all the time around other people.
It's not good.
I can't see anyone looking up to him or admiring him the way people do in this movie.
Wow. Oh, no, that took the animals.
This isn't a character I like. I mean, this is just a weirdo. Let's just say that Johnny Depp did this same type of thing to Jack Sparrow for the first Pirates of the Caribbean. And he had a slurred Irish accent and he acted more like a cartoonish buffoon. Excuse me, where can I find my ship and my compass? Hey, savvy. No one would find this character appealing. The second reason is the comedy, which is so painfully dated and juvenile. It makes 12 Years a Slave look like a Key and Peele sketch. That's how bad it is.
Forceps, please.
Here you go.
That's a piece of celery. Forceps, Doctor.
Oh, sorry. Here you go.
Still celery.
Forceps.
Carrot, that is.
Forceps.
That's a different piece of celery.
Got it. Forceps.
No, still celery. Never mind, I'll get it myself.
It's honestly just a hair away from being as bad as Holmes and Watson, which, granted, is much worse than this, but the humor in both films is very similar.
You see, it's a type of a self-photograph. I can take it, and I will be in it also.
You know what? I find to take the most attractive photographs, you need to purse your lips together like a duck-billed platypus.
Platypus face, chins up. Hey!
Hey! Hey, girl!
Here's a little context. This movie was directed and co-written by Stephen Gaghan, creator of some of the most acclaimed children's movies of the past 20 years, such as Traffic and Syriana. Do I even need to explain how mismatched this is? The movie bombed at early screen tests, so Universal thought that it would actually work if it was more lighthearted. And in order to do so, they had more cute animal characters put in so they could deliver throwaway jokes.
Express emotional vulnerability.
And they brought in multiple filmmakers and screenwriters who were more experienced with comedy and family films. This included Chris McKay, director of the Lego Batman movie, and Jonathan Liebsman, director of the 2014 Ninja Turtles movie. Apparently, they also tried to get Seth Rogen to come in and write a few jokes. It's no wonder that the humor is so disjointed and random when put into that context. I hate it when a studio is making a comedy and instead of allowing the humor to have a personality or charm from the get-go, they just make it a bunch of shitty gags to appeal to the lowest common denominator. I hate that, because that's how we get a reference to a 20-year-old movie that barely anyone remembers nowadays.
Do you understand the words coming out of my bill?
And a French fox shouting, "Vive la résistance!"
Vive la résistance!
A dog smelling butt joke.
Something smelled wrong. And that's coming from a guy who loves the smell of butts.
Ooh, you do love butt.
A whale flipping off joke.
I can't believe you're flipping him off. I know. That man has no chin.
A tiger balls joke.
That's gotta hurt.
Ow, my berries!
And most notoriously, a dragon farting joke.
Respect.
No. And the final reason is just my opinion, but I feel like it's an integral reason why the movie failed. Dr. Dolittle as a concept just can't be made into a good movie. After I saw this, I looked into the previous adaptations of Dr. Dolittle, and I found something very interesting. The original Dr. Dolittle, made in 1967, had a lot of production troubles as well, and just like this one, it bombed at the box office and got ravaged by critics. It got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, but that was only because 20th Century Fox lobbied their way in so they could drum up publicity for the movie and get more people to go see it, which of course did not work. Then in 1998, a new version starring Eddie Murphy was released, and besides being about a doctor who can talk to animals, nothing from the original source material was used. It wasn't a fantastical adventure story, it was just a silly, stupid comedy where Eddie Murphy did his thing. This version ended up being a little bit more successful, despite not being popular with critics, mainly because of Eddie Murphy's star power and the fact that it was made in the 90s, when people thought that shitting a lot was actually funny. Looking at these two versions of Dr. Dolittle, it makes me see this one as a mixture of the two, where one side is a fantasy adventure and the other is a stupid comedy for children. It's perfectly fine if you try to do both, but there has to be a balance. This movie doesn't have that. It's just loud, incoherent, and worst of all, stupid.
Wonderful. A gorilla answering the door.
The thing is that everyone has a different idea of what would make a Dr. Dolittle movie work, but with a premise as basic and uninteresting as a doctor who can talk to animals, those ideas more than likely won't be enough to make an actually good movie. Downey tried to make this emotional family adventure film in the same vein as, I guess, like Up? But nobody ended up liking that for obvious reasons, and all attempts to salvage the film just made it into a giant mess. There's nothing offensive about it, but at the same time, there really isn't anything to take away from it. It's just a giant waste of time. I really don't think that anyone should watch it, because people will always want to watch movies that are more than just loud, stupid bullshit. In the end, I just hope that Downey will still be able to get into good movies and not do a performance that's his equivalent of this.
I can see that. So do I. I never expected to have so much in common.
So in closing,
This is a nightmare!